This one. Hey, thank you for the follow.
Oops. Why is that so big? Oh, I can see people now. Best King. Hello. Can you hear me okay? I think I'm streaming on Twitch and on YouTube. So it's my first time trying it. I'm not sure. Let me know if there's any problems or you can't hear me. But hello. Hello. So today... perfect. Margarita on YouTube, hello as well. And the audio of your voice is kind of low. Okay. Best King, thank you. What I'll do is I'll move my mic a bit closer. Maybe that would be a bit better. Maybe that's better now? Is that okay? Okay, just see if this... why is this not working? Okay. Yeah, I think this was what was kind of expected. A bit of a... okay, it's better now. Perfect, thank you. It's going to be a bit of a testing stream today, because I've not done it before. It kind of seems like the YouTube output is a bit slow. Maybe it's because I'm doing it from two things. Let me check. I think there's a bit of a delay with YouTube, but that should be fine. Well, thank you for dropping in. I really appreciate it. I honestly thought first couple of streams are going to be just me testing the air and seeing what it's like. Today, as you can see, I'm drawing a kingfisher, but the plan is to try and draw a few different animal ranges, essentially. For the acceleration, this world building project, I'm trying to essentially build a TTRPG. So the idea today is to start to create some character concepts for some of the classes that I'd like to introduce into this game, essentially. So the first one is this little Kingfisher Ranger, but the plan is to do, in this like 2-hour stream, is to do a few different little animals and things like that. So Beast King, or Best King, sorry, and Margarita, you're the guys I can see at the moment. Do you guys draw at all? I follow quite a few pages now, but I'm still not sure with who everyone is because of the profiles. Why isn't this working? Sorry, 1 second. I think I've disconnected my Apple Pencil. Oh, why is it not working? Not really? No. You just do you watch a lot of world building videos then? I think it's becoming more and more of a like a big thing on YouTube. I think I've come in at the right time to kind of join the kind of YouTube hype for world building. Margarita, you draw? What do you draw exactly? Do you do world building as well? Or? Yeah, I agree. Best King, they are nice. It's kind of cool to... Oh, there we go. Pen's working again. It's kind of cool to do it, to kind of world build and to kind of get your ideas out onto the paper and to start to come up with something. I feel like it's a bit different to drawing, but it's like nice to be able to like conceptualize your ideas and start to develop them into something more cohesive. I felt with the acceleration it was kind of a big jump that I took into the project after thinking about it for a long time, and I'm kind of glad I did because it allowed me to start to build and with this community and again to kind of put my ideas on paper, which is really nice. I've like I said, I've been kind of thinking of the acceleration for a little while, just trying to drum up some ideas for it, but I think it didn't really come into fruition until I really started putting out the YouTube videos, because it kind of forces you, I guess, to think of something new and to start to think of ideas like more rapidly as well. So definitely like it could be a bit of pressure, but good pressure, I would say. I don't know if you guys are like me with your attention spans, but I think generally a lot of my projects kind of fall to the wayside after a couple weeks. Margarita, I draw and paint and world build. I also write stories sometimes. I mostly do comic style art now, but I've done a lot of acrylic painting of trees. Nice. Oh, that's cool. I think all of them kind of go in together, right? Like drawing, painting, world building. I think they seem to like blend quite nicely together. I think it's like once I think especially when you start world building, mostly that's like the key one, right? Where you start to really hone in on like a almost like a style and like an idea, and then you can kind of develop it through writing as well as through painting, if it's acrylic or digital or other things like that. I think it's a good way to do it. How do you find painting with acrylic, Margarita? Sorry, I probably am pronouncing your name wrong. Margarita. Oh, like the drink, yeah. But yeah, how do you find painting with acrylic? I've got like a bunch of cheapy ones that I just got from like a hobby store. But yeah, I'm okay with it, but I feel like I'm not very good at like selecting a color palette, and it's not as easy as like digital drawing where you're doing a lot of erasing your mistakes and things like that. So I feel like it's a lot more difficult to stay kind of consistent throughout the painting. Your project is one of my favorites to follow. It's such a palatable atmosphere. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Rita. Nice to meet you, Rita. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I think I'm trying not to make it too grimdark. I like a lot of grimdark stuff, which you've probably noticed, like Warhammer and like the Dune universe and lots of different things like that. So I think it probably comes off a little bit with like the Troll Hunters and some of the dark dragon stories and things like that. But yeah, I try to make it. I'm hoping to make it a bit more whimsical at some point. Like you see with like a kingfisher, I feel like is like a fun creature, not like a boar or like an owl or a carrion crow or something. So I'm hoping to do that a little bit more, just to make it more approachable. But yeah, I think it's difficult to diversify once you've got a bit of a style. And I think with this kind of like charcoal-y style, the way I draw, I feel like a lot of the time it's comes across as pretty dark, which I like. Like I said, a lot of my inspirations are people like Karl Kopinski and Paul Dainton and Adrian Smith, who all are Warhammer, like old school Warhammer artists. I think it's just Paul Dainton now who's still in the Warhammer team. But a lot of those guys are, I wouldn't say similar to this. They're like worlds beyond my skill level, but they're definitely, a lot of their like really black and white stuff is just crazy. So cool. But again, super dark and very detailed. Rondix, hey, how's it going? Hey man, how are you doing? Great, thanks. Yeah, like I said, just the first stream, so a bit stressed, to be honest. I'm kind of expecting everything to break in a moment. I probably shouldn't have streamed to Twitch and YouTube at the same time, but I was doing the standard thing of going through all of these suggested videos on YouTube and trying to come up with the best way to stream, and this is what a lot of people suggested. Especially because I think I'm primarily on YouTube. It kind of makes sense. So yeah, so just a little bit stressed. Best King first. Will the TTRPG be a physical release or something like a Steam game? Yeah, so the plan is for it to be a physical book as well as a digital PDF. I have played a lot of DD&D in the past. I've not really had the time recently, but I've played lots of things like Wild Sea, as well as standard D&D, Warhammer, Fantasy. I can't remember the Warhammer game, the Warhammer 40k game. What's it called? Dark Heresy, I think. And I found it's. So yeah, I just love an absolute variety. I'm just about to start running a Mothership campaign for my brother and some of his friends, and so the kind of plan is to test Mothership, which, if you don't know, is like it's like an RPG which is based in it's like a typical sci-fi horror kind of game, and they use like a panic system, which I think will create like a really cool. If I make the acceleration in this kind of style as like a horror game, I feel like it'd be kind of perfect. With trolls and dragons and all these like horrible beasties. So the idea is to make it, to build it up and to slowly write it and then playtest it and then to release it as a PDF for people to try out, and then hopefully eventually release it as a physical book with a bunch of my art and stuff in it. Because I mean, that's one of the main things I want to do, is just make a little art book, I think. You know, a lot of the, I think that's the cool thing with Mothership as well, is they have a lot of great artists who make third-party products, and essentially they do it in their own style. So they do traditional painting or digital painting, or they'll do like photocopies to make it super, you know, blown out. It's incredible. It's a really cool way to do it, and I would love to get in on that. I think it's just a cool idea for artists. So yeah, a physical book, hopefully, but definitely a PDF at least, so people can play it and, you know, try out. I feel like that will give people a better idea of the world of the acceleration, because people will be able to actually play as a Kingfisher Ranger, or to play as a I don't know, you know, a tadpole or a frog or something like that, hunting trolls and doing missions for dragons and things like that. I think it'd be a cool way to do it. Rita, style is dark, but the topic is whimsical and cute, so it works well together. Thank you. Yeah, I agree. I think that's kind of the thing I'm going for. I'm hoping I'm going to do more whimsical characters. I feel like the frogs that a lot of people said they like, I feel like they're probably one of the highlights of the acceleration, the Frogs of War, because they're just fun to make in general. In fact, I'm quite happy with this Kingfisher. We can start drawing a frog now. In fact, I started drawing a rabbit, but I want to draw a frog, to be honest. So yeah, I think the whole, like you said, whimsical is a good way to go for it. Because it kind of, I think, it's a bit like, you know, salt and sugar going well together with cooking. It's like grim dark with whimsical. I think it kind of works. Right, you're gonna see my very messy style of art here, because when I start drawing it, I kind of just make it up as I go along. So to get a reference in. Throndix, yeah, technology does have a tendency to break apart, but it's holding for now. You're right. I think there's a bit of a delay on the YouTube stream, but the Twitch stream seems to be going just fine. So that's good. So yeah, I don't really show people my drawing style. I've got a lot of artists in my family, and especially my mum has said she likes that I kind of, you know, the way I kind of scribble together a piece. She says it in a nicer way than that. I'm kind of just paraphrasing her, but yeah, you'll see how I kind of do it here. With the style that I do, it kind of came together a little bit when I started doing an Inktober. Because I used to just draw on post-it notes. If you've had a look at my Instagram, or you don't have to. I don't really update it anymore. But on there, right at the bottom, from when I first started drawing, I did a lot of it on post-it notes, and then I kind of was super into digital art, so I ended up getting a little Wacom bamboo pad. And that kind of got me straight into digital art. It was a bit you know, mixed at start. I think, you know, a lot of artists can probably relate to this, like you, Rita, or I don't know if you, Throndix, do you draw at all? I don't know if you're an artist, but if you are, I'm sure you can relate with kind of trying to find your own style and just starting off by kind of copying everyone else, or just like copying the artists you really like and doing that kind of thing. Like I did a lot of Studio Ghibli stuff, and I tried to do it a bit like some of my favorite artists on Instagram. And like I said earlier, like, you know, a lot of it was things like these old like Warhammer artists that I used to basically just copy their art because I just loved it. I just thought it was so awesome. So I kind of wanted to do the same thing as them, and ended up accidentally finding the charcoal pen on Procreate, and just ended up using that. It's this pen here. I'll just draw with it on the side. Hi, Abba. Thanks for dropping in. I appreciate it. It's going well so far. No breaks in the stream, but just a bit stressed. I'm worried it's going to break at any point. Yeah, so this is the charcoal pen that I use a lot. It's called Charcoal Block, and it's great because it smudges really well, like real life charcoal. So if you get like a really flat brush pen that's kind of not solid, but I don't know what the word is, it kind of fades off at the end. It smudges really well into kind of like I said, like a real charcoal style, and it's yeah, I think it works well for my kind of style of drawing. Oh, Alba, nice. You're on YouTube and on Twitch as well. Thanks, I appreciate that. How's it going? Like I said, I think so Alba is another person in the world building community. She's making a really cool YouTube channel about druids. Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I say if you have the chance, check out her channel as well, and she streams as well. So it's I think actually I got the idea from your streams, Alba, for trying to try out live streaming. I think yeah, it's the cool thing about this kind of community with like the world builders is that there's just so many people who have like really different ideas, and so it's I don't know, it's kind of kept me quite inspired and constantly creating. Yeah. I'm just kind of pushing together this image without much of a plan. I'm trying to get a bit more into using references. I think that's a really typical amateur artist thing to not use references enough, and I know how helpful they are, and I just I think I need to get a bit better at forcing myself to use references, but I find every time I do, it really helps me get a more like solid foundation on whatever piece I'm doing. But yeah, it's a bad habit that I need to get a bit into more. Oh, Throndix, okay, you've moved over. I'm on YouTube because I have connections. I draw, but not much, and not at a great level. But yeah, I can relate. I think I'm happy with my. Oh, I can't see the bottom of your message. Yeah, my current art style. Yeah, I definitely need to use more references. Yeah, honestly, it's one of those things. I think that if you kind of force yourself to do it, it definitely improves your art, because it's that whole thing about, you know, kind of guessing what something looks like as opposed to just looking at it, which sounds super obvious, but you know, these Scottish guys are a good example of that. Like, I think a really typical kilt, a lot of people would just presume it's, you know, just a skirt with some lines on it. But the cool thing with a lot of these really traditional kilts is they're huge, like, and they would use them a lot for, like, to keep them warm, and as camouflage, and they would use them obviously as representations of their clan, and you know, the particular tartan patterns of each of them is so different. You know, this dude's wearing it as a jacket. This guy's got a couple of kilts, including well, he's got his kilt and his jacket, and an undercoat as well with a different kind of tartan pattern. It's just it's so interesting, and I feel like this frog here, I would draw it like this if I was trying to do it from the top of my head, but I'm going to try and do it in a more detailed way. I like this guy's coat here with the kind of thing hanging over, and I think that, you know, kind of forcing yourself to look will help you to really realize how detailed something can be or how it's supposed to like properly look, and it just makes such a big difference, especially in terms of I think silhouettes and extra details and things like that. But yeah, in terms of art styles, I think it's like such a difficult thing to find. You know, it's easy to like emulate. Oh, it's not. I wouldn't even say that. It's not even easy to emulate. I think it's just like it's easy. Not even easy. I'd say it's difficult to find your style, and it's kind of easy to force yourself towards a style, but then to actually make it, you know, like a permanent thing where you always draw like that. I feel like that's the most difficult part. And you know, I kind of moved away from this style a lot because I used to use Instagram a lot and look at other people's art and just be kind of jealous because it's just really bright and saturated and beautiful, and then a lot of mine's just grey smudges. But then, yeah, I guess I kind of embraced it, and it just became like a really nice, like solid, like a look, I guess is the best way to say it. Like something that I'm hoping will eventually be, you know, very consistent across like the whole project, the acceleration. Vic, to be fair, like your art style, to the point I plan on taking inspiration from it. I tend to draw slow because hyper focus on lines, and most works were doodles while distracted. Thanks, I really appreciate that. Yeah, honestly, I would say one thing that kind of helped me a lot was just being a bit smudgy. I know it's not a very good adjective, but it, you know, when you look at this, it kind of makes sense, I guess, of smudginess. But I think it kind of just stopped me from, like you said, like hyperfixating. I used to try and do a lot of line art, and I'm terrible at it. Now, I don't know if you're like me. I think it's very normal for, you know, artistic people, I guess, but to get distracted quite easily. Like you said, you know, whilst being distracted and drawing doodles. And I feel like a lot of line art takes a lot of focus and concentration, and it's so impressive, I think, when people are capable of doing it, and it's one of those things that I'm really jealous of. And I would say if you can do that really well, that's awesome. And even if you're drawing slow, I think it's worth doing if you can produce something with like really nice lines in it, not like these ones. But yeah, you know, be a bit smudgy sometimes. I think it's just it's a cool way to draw. And I have a big A3 sketchbook on my desk, and you know, when I'm working or on my breaks and things like that, I'm just kind of doodling, and the doodling kind of helps me concentrate on my work. So I have a lot of meetings and stuff for my job, but I fill that with loads of like proper smudgy doodles, and I've posted them a couple of times on YouTube just in my posts, and I found they really help me to get inspired, and you know, even if it's like a really basic idea, you kind of can develop something from it. Like my like in the slideshow now, you can see that the fox image. I think that was a really doodly one that I did. These guys here, the little birds that you can kind of see on the slideshow. All of those. Actually, sorry, I'm looking at the YouTube one. I'm looking at the wrong one. That one's out of date. Anyway, a lot of the ones coming up on the slideshow were kind of like that. Just I got inspired from a doodle that I'd sketched just haphazardly, and it worked out quite well. What kind of things do you like to draw, Vic? And Throndix as well. What do you draw generally? I'm always looking for more people to follow as well, because I think that's it. It's just, you know, like I was saying before, I think the cool thing about the world building community is just crazy amount of different projects going on, and it just means that you're just constantly, you know, inspired by different people just making the most impressive artistic, you know, leaps into these worlds that are just so inspired. It's so impressive. It's really cool to see, for sure. Also, I would say if anyone on here is not in the Monster Garden, like as a subscriber for Monster Garden or the Monster Garden, even the Monster Garden Discord, I highly recommend it. I don't personally have a Discord, and I don't use Discord a lot, if I'm honest. I just use it for gaming with my friends. But yeah, I'd highly recommend it if you want to get inspired, because I think it's got like 12,000 people on it now, and they're all just the most, again, just loads and loads of people making loads of different styles of art, and it's just amazing. It's just so cool how many different projects can be involved with like just one, kind of subgenre. I would say like world building is kind of a genre, I guess, but it's mostly just as like a planning phase, right, for something bigger, like D&D or movies or books or something like that. So it's crazy that so many people can come up with so many different projects, and I think a lot of them do make them into things, whether it's like 3D miniatures or books or things like that. But I feel like a lot of it is just people just creating, which is awesome. So yeah, the Monster Garden Discord, great place to be. It's a very phallic looking knife. I have to change that. I think my favorites are landscapes as well as like hyper realistic animals. But now I'm going to draw like naturalistic, scientifical drawings of animals of the world I'm building. That's cool. That's really cool. I think a big part of a big inspiration for me as well was scientific drawings. There's a really cool guy called, is it Ernest? What's his name? Ernest Haeckel, maybe. I'll just Google it. Yeah, Ernest Haeckel. If you're into like biological drawings, he's definitely a person to follow, and you'll have seen his stuff, I imagine. But I would say his stuff is really, symmetrical. Or actually, some of it can be really asymmetrical as well, which sounds kind of like I just said two things which are completely against each other. But if you see his stuff, it totally makes sense. He does a lot of amazing, octopus drawings and things like coral, and it's amazing. It's really good. His name's Ernest Haeckel. Definitely want to check out. What kind of animals have you made, Agil, for your world building project? Is it like which, by the way, is partially thanks to you, because I've been wanting to start building my own worlds, but you gave me the push to start actually doing it. Oh, amazing! Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. Yeah. Honestly, I would say it's the exact same thing happened to me. I think looking on YouTube and kind of taking the plunge. I would say if you can, start a YouTube channel. Just start, cracking out videos. If anything, it's just good for motivation. And I think now is a good time to do it. I feel like a lot of, YouTube still isn't a massive place for world building. And I think a lot of the really big guys are, they can only produce things so fast. So there's a lot of hungry fans out there looking for more and more world building content, like me. I struggle to kind of get enough and to find enough stuff. This guy's eye is not quite right. It's gonna do that and then make it bigger. Squish it a little bit. But yeah, I would say it's awesome that we've got that to go on YouTube and kind of force yourself to make these kind of videos. Ernest Haeckel, sorry, I'll write down his name. Ernest Haeckel. I think he's German, so it's quite a specific name. I'll write it in the chat just so you can see it, like that. Yeah. I mainly do characters with dialogue or set piece from D&D. I write out an idea and keep it in my brain. And every time I see a line, color, texture, I add it to a reference file, then draw over everything. Wow, that sounds like really detailed. Amazing. Set pieces from D&D. That's cool. I would say I used to do something similar. In fact, that's one of the big reasons I got back into drawing. I used to draw a lot as a kid and kind of got back into it in 2018. But I used to play Warhammer, like the Warhammer TTRPG, the fantasy one. And like the old school one as well. That's super violent and gory. And I used to basically do exactly what you're kind of describing there is we'd have things that would happen in the game. And as we were playing, I would be doodling. And then afterwards, I would kind of finish the sketch. So it'd be things like the elf character in our team would fight a chaos warrior, chaos knight in the forest, and kind of sketch that out. And it ended up, kind of forcing me to draw a lot in a good way. And then eventually I kind of took it a bit further and started doing it on Instagram and a few other things. So yeah, honestly, I think anything like that which kind of gives you inspiration is such a valuable resource and a great way to, again, force yourself to just draw as much as possible. My first drawings are a bunch of animals of a savanna, like a prey bird inspired by secretary birds. I've heard that before. I'm just going to Google it. Secretary birds. The problem with being dyslexic is you can't Google it. Yeah. They're the ones that like bounce the eggs and stuff, right? They're awesome. They kind of look alien as well, like how long they are, and then the heads they have on them. It's just so like it was from like a Star Trek episode or something like that. Alba, finding new world building channels is the best. So many ideas. I completely agree. I think I think it's just every time you go through them and you find like a new person and it's like really imaginative or it's super different or it's like they've like taken a spin on something and found like a different way to kind of present it. It just makes such a massive difference, I think. And even if it like just it helps you to change maybe one element in a in your kind of ideas, I think it's just makes such a massive difference for sure. Do you know Matt Rhodes? He's currently making an illustrated book called Dead. Yeah, Dead Gods is awesome. The crazy thing with Matt Rhodes is he puts out so much high quality content, but so fast. I feel like I think he's like an industry vet. Like I think he's done a lot of concept art stuff in the past. Oh god, this dude's looking thick. I would say he was probably one of the big inspirations for me getting started with it. He's just such a beast. I think he had like a sci-fi world building project before that. But his Dead God stuff is awesome, especially the dinosaur things that he does, where he makes them into buildings or like sentry towers that look like a dinosaur, so it scares off like predatory like carnivores, or the vampires that he has in the world, the vampire giants. And what is it? His like architectural design is awesome. It's so cool. Anything like that, I think, again, which is like super different, it's just so inspiring, I think. Cool, thanks. I'm definitely going to check him out. Yeah, definitely do it. Yeah, honestly, it feels kind of cheap to me. Like I wouldn't do commissions this way or anything. I just have an eye for detail, so my phone is just filled with hyper zoomed in screenshots with things. Honestly, I think, if you can kind of force yourself. Oh, I don't like this guy's face. It's not going very well. If you can kind of force yourself to draw in the way that kind of feels right, which does sound kind of hippy dippy. I don't know. I think it's more satisfying. It just kind of helps you to really do something. And if that's like your main focus, I think if you keep doing it as well, it just slowly improves over time. Like this charcoal-y style was just, honestly, it was a bit of a nightmare at the start. It was, I was kind of trying to find an image by just pushing stuff around, and then eventually it started to look like stuff. But yeah, I feel like the style you're describing sounds really interesting. Definitely would like to see it. Do you have a Vic? Do you have a channel or anything? It's like collage art. Okay, yeah. I mean, I love collage art. A lot of my references are collages. Pinterest has a really good collage system now. He worked on Dragon Age and Mass Effect. Yeah. I think he was like, he's like a proper vet, right? The old school Dragon Age art and Mass Effect art is awesome as well. I have shelves and shelves full of concept art books. It's a bit of an addiction now. I think I've got loads of like old school Warhammer books, old school World of Warcraft, some really, really nice ones. I go to a lot of secondhand bookstores in the UK just looking for a lot of these concept art books because they're kind of everywhere if you know how to look for them. I just got one recently from Attack of the Clones. So the book was published in, I don't know, like the early 2000s. But it's awesome because it's a lot of like traditional art and 3D models and things like that. Oh gosh, I don't really like this guy's body. But yeah, I'd say it's just how you guys do the same as well. But it's so cool. It's so cool, especially when you look back at some of the old guys who used to work in Blizzard back in the day, and you see their art styles, and then you have a look at them now and how they've developed. It's like quite motivating to see that, you know, these mega dudes of the industry have just, you know, come so far, and their skills have developed so far. It's nice. It's nice to look through the books, but also they're just awesome books in general. All right. See you soon, mate. Thanks, Agil. Strawberry Molly. I love your concept for this world. Thank you. Yeah, I feel like it's slowly coming together. I don't know if the other world builders in this chat feel the same, but, you know, I have an idea of what I want to do, and I feel like I want to... This guy's hand needs to be up here, I think. I feel like I want to... I'll push myself in certain directions. Like I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna do this for my project, and then it will kind of turn in a different direction. A good example actually is if you've seen my recent video on pre-tech, the original concept for that was everything was going to be super Roman themed, but sci-fi. So it's like before the world collapsed, all of the super races. Sorry, I need to find a hands copy here. I'm terrible at I normally hide hands because they're a bit frustrating. I'll do this guy's hand. So that all the kind of precursor races, or, you know, humans, were kind of Roman themed, and it was like, or they were, but it's called like the Byzantine Empire. And I started trying to do concept art for it, and I just couldn't do it. It was like really frustrating. I was forcing myself kind of into a box, and it just didn't work. And it was a bit upsetting as well. It's like, you know, when you have a great idea and you just can't, you feel like you're not skilled enough to kind of push it through. And then I bought a book recently. It's just on my desk here actually, called Sketches by Terada Katsuya. And it's all of his pencil sketches, and he does a lot of, like, it's a bit like Kim Jong-yi, who does like the line art sketches where it's, you know, lots of dragons and the Monkey King and lots of samurai women and things like that. But he does a lot of really technical illustrations. And, you know, I got that book, I think 2 weeks ago, or maybe less than that. And then as soon as I looked through it, I was like, okay, I got to do something similar to this for my pre-tech art stuff. And that's how it kind of like ended up coming to be. And so that's, with a lot of the pre-tech images, they're all a bit floaty. And I think it's just because I read this book, which was awesome. Hi, Matthew Madden. Thanks for joining. Not late at all. Yeah, I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Best King, will you continue to call the old technology empire the Byzantine Empire? It sounds really cool. Yeah, so that's the plan. Like the art style for them has kind of changed, but I think the name's gonna stick, because I didn't want to just say Romans, because then people think, okay, just dudes from the past. And the Byzantine, I think, was the name. It was either the Persian Empire or maybe one of the Greek nations called the Romans. I can't remember who it was. So it is a real name that was given to the Romans, but they so I'm going to stick to that name. I agree. I think it sounds kind of cool, but it is a real name as well. It's something I'm trying to do a little bit with some of the other stuff as well. It's just have some like real world aspects to it, whilst also making it kind of fantastical, like frogs dressed as 17th century Scottish warriors. Byzantine. Is that not how you pronounce it? To be honest, when I first did it and I was writing the script for a video, I had to Google the pronunciation of Byzantine. Byzantine. It doesn't sound right now. It's I found it. I was like, oh, that's an awesome name, but how do you pronounce it? Very difficult. I feel like this pose is a little bit cooler, but I don't really know. He needs to be getting something out of this bag. I'm not really sure what. The for everyone, I think I mentioned it right at the start when I think it was just Agile in the stream, but and Best King, but essentially I'm trying to draw some character concepts for my RPG game that I want to make for this TTRPG, and today I wanted to work a bit on the Rangers, and so this is going to be a bit of a Scottish a Fey Ranger. So a lot of the kind of the Ranger art is going to be of the Fey. And hi Shambles, thanks for joining the stream. A lot of the Rangers are going to be kind of, I'm going to draw them as Fey. I'll do a few human ones as well in the typical English Civil War uniforms. But I think a few people missed this bit at the start. I've started off with this guy. So he's a kingfisher, which is a really awesome bird we have in the UK. Very tiny, really bright blue. I imagine there's kingfishers all over the world, but I really love the really British birds. We've got a lot of really nice ones that I want to incorporate into the acceleration. So so this was the first one I started doing. So he's got his nice kilt and his little French beret. I don't know what the name for them are, what they call them in Scotland. So this is the second guy. Byzantine Empire was a later name for the ethnically Greek eastern half of the Roman Empire that survived well into the 15th century AD. So yeah, really cool. I did not know that. That's really interesting. Yeah. I knew it was like a name given to a part of the Roman Empire, but that's interesting. I didn't know that at all. I think it's cool to kind of incorporate it. And a big reason why I chose the English Civil War, like the kind of 17th century costumes and everything for the world, was because everyone looks awesome in the 17th century. I think in the 17th century you had the Ottoman Empire, you had the English Civil War. It was the end of the. Someone correct me if I'm making up all of this information, but it was the end of the conquest of Central America, so all the conquistadors and everything. You had samurai in Japan. I'm going to try not to go away from the British Isles, at least until I've developed everything I want to do for now. But it could be cool to start to introduce maybe some characters who've come from abroad, and actually they're related to some of these other nations from this period. So I thought that would be an awesome way to do it. Albert, love the Kingfisher character. Thank you. I think he works quite well. I started drawing him before the stream actually, just as a little test to see if it would work in stream. I think he's just his like pointiness works quite well. I'm quite happy with him. I don't know if I'm going to touch him again actually, but he makes for a very handsome ranger dude. So I might go back to this rabbit character at some point, but we'll see afterwards. He's got the more typical English soldier uniform. I'm back. I don't have a channel or anything. Did y'all have a Discord for this channel? Actually, I was thinking about getting a Discord, but I'm not very. I don't know. I said kind of at the start of the stream that I'm not super into Discord. I use it for the Monster Garden world building channel, and I use it to game with my friends. But other than that, yeah, I haven't used it much. I feel like it's such a great way to meet people, and the cool thing with the Monster Garden one is it's just allowed me to kind of see a bunch of other people's stuff. Like there's a guy on YouTube called Winter, if you're not following, if you want some more world building people to follow, he's awesome. If you type Winter, maybe like world building, you'll find his stuff. He's actually changed his whole idea with his world building concept, but his art and his stories are amazing, really, really good. And I found him on the Monster Garden YouTube channel. But yeah, I would love to get into it, I think, and yeah, to chat with you guys and just to kind of create a community, because I think it's good on YouTube, but there's only so much you can do with the comment section, I guess. It's kind of limited, and I feel like Discord is a much better way to connect. But then you have to get moderators and everything. It feels quite tricky, actually. Matthew, the Byzantine Empire was the eastern half of the Roman Empire, which survived after the fall of Rome, based in the city of Constantinople, which is known as Istanbul. Nice. Okay. You guys are all... you guys know your history a lot better than me. I should maybe not use names so freely without maybe doing a bit more research. If anyone else has any cool historical facts, especially about this time period, I would love to hear it. I love history in general, but especially for this project, I'm trying to learn as much as possible. I've been buying a bunch of books on the English Civil War and everything, Roundheads versus the Royalists, and then about the Scots in the north, which is, of course, what a lot of my Caledonia faction is kind of based on. But yeah, I'm always interested to hear more historical facts for sure. Winter is great. Yeah, he's awesome. He's so good. I feel like he's got a really great narrative to all of his stuff as well. It's a shame actually, because I feel like he put recently that he didn't. I think he wasn't very satisfied with the way his project was going, so he's just started a new project. And I think his new one's gonna be cool. It's about like animals, and he's done some really cool concepts for birds and stuff on the Monster Garden Discord. But yeah, I feel like a lot of probably world builders get the same what's it called, imposter syndrome type thing, where you kind of expect yourself to produce a bunch of stuff and it just doesn't come to be. But yeah, he's awesome for sure. It's all good. If you're curious, I could send you an example of my art presses on Instagram. Yeah, absolutely. Do you know, I'm not on Instagram a lot nowadays, but I do basically go on there just to check my messages, because my friends send me a bunch of memes and I have to keep up to date with them. And I send them a lot as well. So absolutely. If you're setting this in the 1600s, it would be worth it to know that the Byzantine era, Byzantines are like 200 years gone. Yeah, so the name for the faction, which is the Byzantine Empire, is essentially they're kind of gone now. So it's not exactly pointed out when they disappeared, but they are essentially the ones who had a massive war and kind of ended the world in my project, The Acceleration. So I think the Ottomans were about right in like the 1600s maybe. But I actually, when I started building this project, a lot of it was like Ottoman era clothing and all these kind of things. So I had some really cool concepts of kind of fantastical dwarfs with, the big kind of typical hats that you see in a lot of the art for the Ottoman Empire. But yeah, I would say I kind of set it in that period, but it's all going to be around the British Isles. And also with the British Isles, I feel like I'm kind of touching a little bit on Bronze Age Britain as well. So a lot of the clans and things that kind of oppose the Romans when they arrived. So a bit of that I hope will come through at some point with the Fae specifically. You've mentioned groups of deer fairies who are able to calm deer trolls with some sort of ritual. The world seems pretty low magic. Will the game you're making have a magic system? Great question. Yeah. So the deer fae calm trolls, and but nobody really knows how they do it, and that faction is going to be kind of touched upon from time to time. And I want there to be kind of mysticism with them, because they're essentially a massive herd that is full of deer fae and normal deer giants, deer trolls, and they're led by a deer dragon. So from an outside perspective, it looks like magic. And especially with the TTRPG, there's going to be no magic in it, but I'm hoping to do kind of a superstition system. So players would be able to do things during the day, and during every day they would have to follow a certain set of rules which are based on their own superstitions. So it's things like, okay, you knock before you cross the threshold, or if a crow is blocking your path, you have to take another route. So like really, very superstitious stuff, but your characters have to firmly believe in that. And similar to the Mothership system, there's going to be a big D100 table, and instead of rolling, I don't know if anyone plays it here, has played it here, but when you roll up your character for Mothership, you roll up a badge, and like a patch that you would attach to your jacket or something, and it'll have like a phrase on it or a picture, which I think is awesome, and it kind of describes your character a little bit, so it gives them a kind of theme. And I want to do the same with mine, but one of them would be a superstition. So that's a superstition you have. You also have a fear. You also have a few other things, but so there's not going to be magic, but people are going to be superstitious and believe in magic in that sense. I think a lot of things with the pre-tech as well will kind of be associated with that belief in magic, and you'll see, people around the world will see in the game. We'll see people doing these incredible things, like I think I mentioned in the pre-tech video, like cutting a troll in half with a plasma beam, or healing a person who's mortally wounded, and just things like that. And obviously to people who don't know that this person's using pre-tech, it seems like magic. So yeah, a lot of superstition I think will be in the game. Do you have any named frog characters in your setting? I really like the peacock dragon you showed in one of your videos. Thank you. Yeah. So there's one toad character that I want to introduce as a short story. I've kind of done a little comic for him. I did it, just in my sketchbook, and he is a bounty hunter, and he is not sent after trolls and things like that, but he's sent after criminals. And so he tracks them down and hunts like these dangerous bad guys. And again, it's I think we've used the word whimsical a lot on this stream so far, but he's a bit of a silly character because he's a little short, kind of a bit chunky toad with the typical Frogs of War hat. So really big cavalier hat with a massive feather and a really ornate jacket, and all these kind of things. So he's a bit of a silly character, but he's a badass as well. He's like one of the best bounty hunters in the land. He's super expensive to hire. If you hire him out, and he catches all the criminals if they're worth catching. And I kind of half came up with that idea when thinking of classes for this TTRPG. I don't know if I'm going to do a bounty hunter class, but I think I might bring him into as like a character in the game, like a named character perhaps in the introductory segment. But yeah, so some other there's a few named characters I want to kind of bring in that I've kind of drummed up and I've made notes about, but we'll see. Before I send any art, any phobias of bees or Santa Claus? No, no, not at all. Big fan of Santa Claus, big fan of bees. Bees are actually something that I want to bring a bit more into the what does that say? Trending BR3 trending. Is that a bot? I did that stream before. Vol 190 plus. Does anyone know what that means? Sorry, Gabrielle, I'm not sure what that means. So I want to do a few more insect characters. In fact, without showing too much of my stuff, one of the characters I drew for the previous video was this dude, and he is actually a moth. And I think the video went by pretty quickly on him because I didn't have much time to show him. But I want to do a few more insect characters. But the problem is, I think with their silhouette, they're quite difficult to draw. And especially with all the hair and everything, it's difficult to kind of track them, like to have them show up quite nicely. And you can kind of see here where the white kind of comes through, and it doesn't quite work with the antenna. But I want to do a lot more insect characters. Because someone actually told me in one of the videos that bees are super smart. And I did mention previously that, with the acceleration, a big point in it was how it was mostly intelligent creatures that evolved or mutated. So yeah, I do plan to do bees in the future as like perhaps a playable character. In fact, one of the ideas I had was something called Weird Folk, but it's weird spelt like WYRD, and they are essentially the half mutated or people. So not everything mutated perfectly, not everything like evolved perfectly. So you might have mice fae who are not much bigger than a normal mouse, or you might have a toad fae who's half giant. Essentially, it's like he's mutated too much, and things like that. But also a lot of creatures which would be quite scary to see, like if you met them. So things like a dragonfly fae, which would be pretty terrifying if you saw one of them face to face. Or even like a ladybird or something. So like a cute insect or cute beetle. But again, they're kind of seen as the outcasts. And therefore they have this title of Weird Folk. And I've been thinking of it from the perspective of the TTRPG. Sorry, I'm not really drawing here. I've been thinking of it from the perspective of the TTRPG, and I thought that would be an interesting supplement. Like to have like a game you could do as a one shot where you all play as weird folk, and you kind of have to deal with the prejudice of people just being instantly scared of you. You get disadvantages whenever you talk to people with your face revealed, or you're just not allowed in certain towns, or troll hunters presume that you're horrible monsters and chase after you and things like that. So I think it would be an interesting one to play for sure. I also wanted to ask this: how big is the island that the story takes place, and do you have a real world example? Thanks. Yeah, so it's pretty much the UK. It's the majority of it is based in the main island for England, Scotland, and Wales. Currently, a lot of it is based in the northeast, where I'm from, where a lot of my family is from, and I think I'm going to go into Caledonia at some point, so talk a little bit more about Scotland and hopefully be able to produce some nice big, Scottish highlands and things like that, but like landscapes. But yeah, it's pretty much the same size as the UK, so not massive, But, you know, if you don't really have any valuable means of transportation, and if the majority of your island is covered in trees full of dangerous monsters, it seems like a lot further than it should be. So yeah, that's kind of the size I've drummed up. I did actually draw a map for it. In fact, let me bring it up here without sharing too much of my screen. So I started to draw this map a while ago, and it includes the swamps of Icenia, which is based on the county of Norfolk, where Boadicea was from, the famous rebellious queen who fought against the Romans. And then the rest of it is kind of based up here. Oops. It's based in this region here, which is Yorkshire. Essentially, this part here is essentially Yorkshire in the UK, and then Caledonia kind of is up everything up here. Ignore the nests of Camelot. Pretend you didn't see that. I couldn't really think of anything to do for Wales, so I kind of nuked Wales. I think I will bring them back. No offense to Welsh people. I love Wales and Welsh people, but I'm going to try and think of something more creative for Wales than just sheep fae, which I don't know if people would be a bit offended by. So yeah, this is kind of a concept map, but I hope to produce something a bit more interesting. Oh no, Wales, yeah, poor Welsh. Yeah, do you know, I wanted to do something that was a bit more connected to the like pre-acceleration, so that everything was so there was like an area that had perhaps been nuked during the big war. Unfortunately, Wales took the hit for that. It was going to be London, but I thought London could be an interesting setting for like a big ruin that could be explored, like a massive jungle ruin. So unfortunately, Wales took the hit. I think I'll redraw this map and I'll bring Wales back. You know, no one needs to suffer. Also, Ireland is missing from this map, and that's just because I don't really have a good idea of what I want to do with Ireland yet. It will be something important because obviously the Irish weren't just they were still there. I think they had a lot of mercenaries used during one of the English civil wars, but yeah, it's all going to kind of come together at some point. Hello everyone. Hi, Southson. Sorry if that's bad pronunciation. Thanks for joining the stream, Frog, indeed. For those half mutations, would there ever be ones where like certain parts of the body mutated and not others? That's interesting. Yeah, cool. Great idea. So they've started to mutate, so maybe they've got like a big body and really short legs, or maybe just like the left side of their body has like a normal arm and the right side is like an animal. If it was like a dog fae. That's a cool idea. Thank you, Strawberry Molly. Yeah. Again, the weird folk thing is something that I want to do for an upcoming video, but I don't really have a plan for it yet. I think because at the moment it's just going to be a bunch of character sketches, but I wouldn't mind doing it as even like a short story, like a little community of weird folk who live together, and they kind of get by doing the dirty jobs for society, like theft or assassination or espionage and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of an idea that I want to go through eventually. One thing I've kind of hinted at in a few videos as well, I don't know if anyone's seen it, is some of the human giants who are also considered weird folk because they look quite abnormal. And I've kind of dressed them up as almost like gorillas. So there's one here. This guy's a human giant who's on the council for Scarborough, and with the Church of the Deep and one of the seagull cultists. There was another one as well. I managed to slip in to... No, not this one. This one here. So it's not very easy to see, but this is one of the human giants as well. And I've kind of made them look a bit like... Or I've kind of started to draw them a bit like walking like gorillas. I thought that was like an interesting way to just do giants instead of, you know, just a tall dude. And the I'm going to introduce them a bit more because I feel like that could be an interesting character to play as well. Again, just like a normal human who's just too big, in terms of like they can't kind of fit through doors and they can't really do other things like that. And again, people kind of are a bit scared of them because they're mutated humans, which is not super normal for the accelerations. It's mostly the Fae which are kind of evolved. So any kind of humans who've evolved at all, it affects them a little bit. It affects their standing in society, essentially. Right. I'm a little bit bored of the frog. I might come back to him. Does anyone have an idea for a character, a ranger character, just a British Isle animal? And I'll start to do that if someone gives me a good idea. I've got a big book next to me full of animals, but I feel like maybe you guys can come up with something cooler. I've collected so many books on the Scottish history, and I've got one here next to me which is Tudors, Stuarts in the Civil War, and loads on birds as well. But if anyone has a particular animal that they think could be quite cool, let me know. I'll start to draw the body, and then maybe we'll change the size depending on what someone comes up with. Let me find like a cool costume. I'm trying to do more than just kilted animals, but you know, it can be quite difficult sometimes. Quick question: what do you use as drawing software? Procreate. Yeah, just Procreate. I used to use Photoshop a lot for photography, but after drawing on like a Wacom Bamboo for a while, I jumped into an iPad, and it kind of threw me down the deep end of drawing. And with Procreate, it's awesome. I can't recommend it enough. You know, they're not sponsoring me or anything. And I would also say iPads with an Apple Pencil are amazing. They're just so good. I have an Android phone, and I've got a PC. I don't have a Mac, and I'm not, you know, I don't really have any feelings, positive or negative, for Apple. But Apple iPads, Apple Pencil, awesome. Eventually, I ended up upgrading to an iPad Pro with the Apple Pencil 2, and yeah, I think it's just I actually did that just before I started the YouTube channel, and I'm so happy I did. I would say, you know, if you want to make an investment in your drawing, it's such a great investment. It's so good. It's so intuitive. It's so easy to use. I would say there are limitations, especially compared to Photoshop in terms of size and scale and everything. But yeah, honestly, I could not recommend Procreate enough, and I couldn't recommend iPads enough. Okay, rabbit Fae or a puffin? Puffin's cool. I did actually start drawing a rabbit. I do a lot of hares because I love hares. I started doing a rabbit, and he's a cool little dude with a popped collar. But I wanted to. I've done one puffin before in a previous video. Let me find him. Just sat having a. I think he was eating a sandwich or looking at a map or something. Was it this one? That was the dragon video. Oh, hello. I loved your Troll Hunters video. Thank you, Harper. Yeah, you know, I love the Troll Hunters. I think they're such a cool faction, if I say so myself. But I feel like, you know, I'm trying to make a TTRPG with this. I'm going to repeat myself a lot, but I think the Troll Hunters are probably going to be like a favorite for people to play. So yeah, I did do one puffin. It's this little dude with his map, you know, who's a bit lost in the forest. And actually, I went to see puffins recently near where I live. They're awesome. They're such cool birds. They're so cute and they're so tiny. Yeah, maybe we could do a puffin. Yo, first time catching this stream. What are you going to draw? Thanks for joining. So today I'm just drawing a bunch of different rangers. So we've drawn a kingfisher for the people who just joined. I did a little bit of that before the stream. We just half finished a toad, but I'm a bit bored of drawing him, so I'm going to jump ahead. And we're going to go on to a puffin. Let's do a puffin. That's cool. I draw a lot of rabbits and hares. Sorry, Matthew. If I've got time at the end, I'll maybe jump back into the rabbit and finish him. my god, I love him. Yeah, the kingfisher seems to be a bit of a favorite. The chat window on stream may be frozen. Oh, really? Oh dear. If I'm honest, I'm streaming on YouTube and on Twitch at the same time with OBS. So if anyone has advice, by the way, on streaming, I'd really appreciate it, because this is my first stream. So it could be a bit devastating. Alba, maybe a wild boar or mole. Do you know, I've done quite a lot of boar. Boar are natives to the UK, and a lot of the animals I want to draw are from the UK. But that's Twitch chat. It's the, I think the YouTube stream is a bit slower. Ah, okay, I see. Yeah, sorry, it's posting both, so I can see both of them at the same time and catch up. So yeah, I've done quite a few boar. I think I've not done a mole. Mole are quite difficult to draw because I think they've got quite small faces. But I could do a mole as well. Let's do a puffin first. And we'll start with that because puffins are awesome. And we'll do him in an English Civil War costume, because I think that could be a cool one to do. And we'll give him a big rifle over his shoulder. And maybe marching. So the dudes I want to do, today are all rangers. But I want to do them as a bit of a variety. So the first two I've done are kind of more Caledonian Fae. So this guy's going to be a more Albion Fae, just like a normal one that lives south of Caledonia. So we'll give him a big jacket and big flowy pants, I think. But it's alright, puffins are great too. Hopefully the little guy makes it out of the forest. Yeah, poor puffin. Yeah, I drew it and he looks super sad. He almost looks like he's eating a sandwich. Just sat there, kind of trying to find his way out of the forest. One thing I would say is with the RPG, the plan is that Fae, you'll have a choice of playing a human or a Fae, and then eventually perhaps a weird folk as well. But the Fae, the humans, you can be a bit more selective. Is kind of the plan. You can kind of choose, what they're good at. But the Fae will have will have less options, but they'll have more natural skills. So it'll be things like, forest navigating or hiding or camouflage, things like that. So it'll be interesting playing a Fae, and there'll be a lot of choices, I hope. Things like, if you're going to play a fox, it should play a bit differently to a boar, for example, or differently to a mole. So that's kind of the plan. But yeah, I just need to figure out the mechanics for it, really. I'm going to run a game of Mothership soon for my brother, and the system I want to make is going to be in Mothership because they've got like a really nice panic engine, which a lot of the game is built on stress, and I think that will kind of aid to the game a lot. But yeah, I need to kind of test it out and see how it works before I start making a lot of the mechanics for my game. I love to see different depictions of trolls in different fantasy worlds, and the way you depict trolls is hella cool. But I didn't watch all of your videos, and I'm not sure if I remember correctly. But the only thing different about them is their nature and size, or do they have different mutations? Good question, yeah. So, there's essentially 4 different mutations when it comes to the acceleration. The primary one, the most common one, is Fae. So these are these dudes, the basically anthropomorphic animals that are intelligent. They're more than sentient. They're like intelligent creatures. That a lot of them can communicate. A lot of them have opposable thumbs and are capable of, drawing. I need a puffin reference image here. Excuse me. The second most common is the giants. So giants are essentially just large animals. So if you have a horse and then there's a horse giant, the horse giant will be just bigger. essentially. It still act like a horse. It still has the same nature. It wants to eat grass and run around and stuff, but it'll just be really, really big. When I say really big, I mean, instead of like if it was a pony, it would be the size of a car. It would be bigger than a pony, for example. Sleeve's too big. The third most common are trolls, and trolls are kind of like, if you're like microwaving food and you leave it for too long? That's essentially what happens. It's like the animals mutate and they become Fae, or they become giants, and then if they just continue to mutate kind of out of control, a bit like what Strawberry Molly was saying earlier about how they kind of half mutate. So trolls do that, but in a way that makes them more aggressive. And eventually they kind of mutate out of control and they continue to grow, but their body grows at different rates. So it's things like they grow horns at different parts of their bodies, they grow eyes on different parts of their bodies, and even things like fish or birds will grow extended teeth that are not normal for that kind of creature. So they basically grow into like a massive predator and become extremely dangerous. The thing is, they are quite mindless as well, so they will attack anything that they see, and so they don't normally last very long. And a lore snippet that I haven't really introduced yet is that trolls in the sea are really dangerous because they've got more room to grow. And although there's a lot of big creatures in the sea, a lot of trolls kind of go unchecked, and so you get these massive trolls that just roam the sea and hunt ships, and kind of can live off that, as opposed to the land where they're kind of limited to the size of the forest or where they live, and then troll hunters kind of keep them in check, or dragons keep them in check, so they eventually get kind of snuffed out. The last kind of mutation is dragons, and there's not... Giant chicken seems like a funny idea, I agree. Yeah. There's not a lot of dragons, but I would say the dragons that do exist are extremely intelligent. The way I normally describe them is, imagine a living being that is a supercomputer. It's just able to think much faster than you, and to plan in milliseconds, and to kind of just to scheme, and they're really charismatic. And they build up these massive followings, which is where the dragon cults come from. And even like a lot of human dragons... Oh, puffins are very cute, aren't they? Even a lot of human dragons... even a lot of humans are attracted to dragon cults because these dragons are so charismatic. One of the good examples is the peacock dragon, who has a massive cultish following of just these people who just sit around and just listen to him talk all day, because he's so charismatic. But yeah, those are the main mutations. Thanks for the question. Is there like a world-building reason that all adopted human clothing also right, or is it just because it looks fabulous? Honestly, it's because it looks fabulous. Yeah, you're right. It's I would say a big appeal to the whole like 1600s or 17th century kind of clothing, with a little bit of influence from the 16th century, is because it's awesome. It just looks so cool. And they have, these big popped collars, and they have huge hats. In fact, let's give this guy a big hat as well, because big hats are awesome. They have these huge, cavalier hats, and often they're like kind of pins to the side. You see them a lot, with these huge feathers. And I think they just look awesome. It's such a like dandy period of time where just for some reason, like the biggest killers in the land just wore the fanciest clothes possible. You'd have these dudes who were like in the military, and they were marching up and down the UK, or England at the time, just attacking villages and fighting each other and things like that. And they had big hats, and they had fancy mustaches and amazing goatees, very well primed, and they made sure that they had big peacock feathers in their hats, which I think is just pretty cool. I think any kind of animal with a fancy hat looks better, for sure. So would you say dragons have better living standards overall compared to their neighbors? Interesting question. Yeah. Well, I think it really depends. So the idea is going to be there's going to there's essentially a catalogue of dragons that are that's maintained by some of the big universities. So some of the bigger cities have these universities where the rich kids get to go and study and learn more about the world they live in, and they have a catalogue of dragons, and a few of them are like well known, like the Raja, the Dragon of Enlightenment, which is the peacock dragon, and there's the Dragon of Murder, who's like a black cat, who's more of like a rumor, because no one's ever seen her and lived, essentially, because they just find bits of people after they presume she's been there. So some of them, which are really well worshipped, are just basically adored by their cults and washed, and they have riches and they have pre-tech, and they live these extraordinary lives. Whereas some other ones, like the dragon owl, the owl dragon that you saw in the dragon video at the start, kind of lives by itself in a hollow. I can't remember the name of the dragon, actually. I need to look through. I've got a big document with all of this information in. But that dragon essentially lives by itself, and it lives off of people basically making deals with it. And it just feeds on the kind of creatures brought to it every day by all the people who essentially owe it money. It just extorts all these like little villagers who are perhaps having a difficult time maintaining their crops and things like that. So yeah, it really depends. I think I want the dragons to be like really various. I need a reference for this hat because it's not going very well. I want the dragons to be very various, and I'm hoping to introduce a few more human dragons as well into the mix. The main one that's been kind of hinted at or suggested as a dragon is Boudica, the Queen of the Fae, who ironically is a human dragon, or supposedly a human dragon. But she will. I want to introduce her in a short at some point, like a short story. Maybe about like a spy who goes into the camp and is captured and is questioned by the Queen of the Fae, and perhaps converted because they're so charismatic. But I'm not sure. I'm currently writing that short up. I've got a big list right next to me of all the different people, all the different videos I want to make at some point. The dragon in the dragon video kind of reminds me of the owl from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Yes. Did you watch that series? And if you did you take inspiration from the dragon from the series? Yes, absolutely. I can't remember his name. The giant owl in the library in the desert. I love that episode because there's the whole bit with the cactuses, and the first Airbender series is just awesome. I love Book of Korra, I think it's called. But honestly, if I could make a whole world building project about elemental benders and like that kind of martial arts stuff, I would. It's just so cool. And I think the guys who wrote that up just did such a good job. That's like a great example of amazing world building, because all the animals in that world, where they're kind of crosses between different animals, and it's just awesome. I need to start getting a reference. That looks a bit like a sports shooting rifle. Yeah, absolutely. I would say that was a big influence for me. I love that series, and that episode particularly is really, really cool. Yeah. I think, to be fair, it sounds like the Dragon of Murder would be living the best life regardless of the dragon status. Love black cats, screwy little voids they are. Yeah. Do you know, one of the big influences for me for choosing the Dragon of Murder is one of my friends has a black cat. And I just thought, like you said, cats love that. Imagine a giant cat and everything is smaller than it, and it's much more intelligent than everything in the world. It would have the best life, especially if it was free in a giant forest and it had no predators to chase after it. I think it would just love its life. So yeah, absolutely. Where do they get the titles like Dragon of Murder? I love the idea. So I would say the titles generally come from people, from like the populace. I would say like, for example, the Dragon of Murder. The dragon never requested that name, but I would say because of its kind of reputation, that's where the name came from. So yeah, I would say a lot of them are kind of given these names. Raja, the Dragon of Enlightenment, is because the dragon is supposed to be super old and he knows loads about the world before. And yeah, so I think that the names kind of come from their cults. Like the Glutton, so the Dragon of Scarborough, the Port of Scarborough. He never chose that name, but he didn't ask for a name. So that's from the people of Scarborough. So he's supposed to be a bit of a secret, but I think a lot of people know about him. And they know that he consumes so much fish every week, and he takes a lot of the... These guys don't have any good guns. I've got to find a better reference. Let's do one of the Scottish ones. So he... everybody knows he takes a lot of the food from the port, and that's where he got the name, the Glutton. So yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons for these names, but they kind of come from the people. Fantastic work. I love your content. Thank you, Zat BC. Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate it. I binge watched all your videos in like 2 days, but I don't think I saw any fish fae. Some of the smartest animals live under the water, like orcas or dolphin, would fit into the Church of the Deep. Dolphin folk would be interesting. Not quite the deep sea aesthetic though. So great. Yeah, there's at least one picture of fish. I think it's in the Scarborough video, perhaps. The Port of Scarborough. Of fish fae. But essentially they're considered weird folk. I was just talking to these guys about it before. And because they're kind of scary, they look scary, like a fish. And it's quite difficult for a fish to mutate into a fae. They kind of become... their bodies don't fit as well as mammals or even insects into like a kind of humanoid body. So they are a bit scary. So they kind of do the labor jobs in the port cities. The same with like otters and some of the other aquatic mammals. So dolphins are also going to kind of be considered weird folk. So from this kind of sub-faction, which are a bit essentially scary fae. They're like fae that don't really fit into society because they're a bit scary to look at. That's just a simple fact. And so they're kind of outcasts. If I'm honest, I would say the fish fae are quite fun to draw. I have drawn them at least once. Done a few concepts of them. But I tried to do some dolphin fae, and it looks super bizarre. It didn't work as well as I was hoping it would. And yeah, so I'm going to have to come back around to that, I think. So I'm getting a bit distracted and kind of just doodling this. To give this guy a bigger stock. So yeah, there will be more sea fae. And actually, on some of my videos, some people had a pretty cool idea where it was like, like a whale dragon, or some like aquatic dragons. And I agree. I think that would be an awesome idea. So it might be something I'll look at in the future. It's not something I've planned, but they had some really cool concepts, which I think I might try and do a little bit later. This gun is not very clear. I might do some shadows. I'll give him a better pair of trousers. So yeah, I am planning on kind of doing a few more different types of dragons, as well as a few more different types of fae. Oh, there you go. That's some proper baggy trousers. That's cool. Right, I'm changing this guy's aesthetic because those trousers are too baggy not to draw. Yeah, I want to do a bit more like various types of fae. But I think some things work better than others. Like mammals, it's pretty easy. Birds are really cool as well. I feel like just birds, fae, just look pretty awesome. Fish are kind of funny, but then there's certain things like like a crab fae. What would that look like? Or a whale, like a porpoise fae or something. A jellyfish fae. Or an octopus or something. I think there could be loads of really, really cool types, but yeah, I think it'd just be kind of difficult to. I think I just need to do some more concept art. And here I thought there weren't Fae because the eyelids are where the whimsy is stored. Do you know what? You're right. Yeah, I think a lot of these creepy creatures with the like what are they called, compound eyes on a dragonfly is less whimsical. But again, that's why they're weird folk, because they're a bit scary. And fish and things like that. There's a lot of what's the word? There's a lot of artistic freedom or artistic liberty. I can't remember the term. Where it's like, okay, this puffin has thumbs, so it can shoot a gun. So I'm kind of pushing the boundaries of this evolution theory with Fae, but artistic license. I think that's the term. I'm giving myself the artistic license to kind of ignore what could be possible if everything kind of mutated in the same sense. The rule of cool is the priority, definitely, with this project. I'm going to try and stick to a theme with them, so not go too crazy, but I want to kind of push the boundaries a little bit. This leg's a little bit shorter than the other. Maybe an octopus dragon, sort of like a kraken. Well, actually, if you go to one of the videos, let me see if I've got it here. Where was it? Ah, here you go. Okay. There you go. Fish Fae. Who was asking about that? Yeah. So Fish Fae for you there. I think. Who was that? T. That's for you there. T. So these guys were a concept I was doing to try and figure out how they would look, and I've got kind of the front face. Obviously the big bulgy eyes, but then if the head went straight up, and this was a little dude. That was kind of a quick sketch. But I don't know. I love them. I think they're so funny. It was like I think this image took me about maybe 30 minutes to draw, so it was like really, really quick. But it was just a fun one to do. But I definitely did some other ones as well. Let me try and find them. So that was the Dragon of Scarborough. Oops, that's the same one. It was the Trolls. You're going to see a lot of my sketches here, which are kind of half done, but that's fine. Oh yeah, so it was actually the Port of Scarborough one. Maybe it was the same one. Sorry, I know I'm flicking through these quite fast, but it was in the concepts. I'm not sure. I'll try and find it later. Okay, here's some weird folk ones. This was again a bit of a concept with a fly, a ladybird, and a dragonfly. And I was trying to figure out, okay, would they still have the 6 limbs? How would that work? If it was like a bounty hunter, they could have more guns, or but they'd have to kind of disguise themselves as well. So I was starting to do it. They're really half-finished, quick images, but again, kind of like concept-y. Just trying to think of an idea. Sleepy Citizen, if whale became a fae, would it stay its regular size or become smaller? That's a cool idea, actually. Do you know, I've not actually thought about animals getting smaller to turn into like normal fae. It's one of the reasons I haven't done a horse fae or like a cow fae, because you're right. It would just seem kind of strange if it was bigger, but still anthropomorphized. Maybe, yeah. So like a smaller whale. Again, I think it's kind of the rule of cool that I have to fit into. Excuse me. The rule of cool that I have to fit into these kind of designs. So an octopus dragon. Sorry, yeah, I got distracted. I did have an octopus somewhere, but not an octopus. Sorry, a cuttlefish. Okay, I might have to find it next time. But essentially, it was one of the documented dragons by the university is a cuttlefish dragon that sits off the east coast and hunts ships, and it's super intelligent as a cuttlefish would be. But it's essentially it just lives in the ocean and just hunts, and it's, you know, like everyone's saying here, it's kind of camouflaged, and it stalks its prey, and it's very strong, and it's got lots of limbs. So I just thought it was a cool idea. I have so many of these kind of like smaller ideas that I want to explore, but yeah, I might make this guy's hat smaller. I think big hats are good, but maybe I'm not liking the look of this one. But yeah, so there's a lot of ideas on the way. Oh, that's better. Yeah, I like that. A lot of ideas on the way for different types of Fae. It would also, apparently, octopuses are shockingly intelligent. Yeah, exactly. I think, you know, in terms of animals evolving that are intelligent, I feel like any kind of cephalopod would make sense. It sounds like how an uninformed villager would explain the difference between a Fae and weird folk to their kids. Like, don't they got eyes? I mean, that's it, right? It's like if the weird folk are just dudes who are scary looking, then even normal Fae could end up being weird folk. Like a turkey. Imagine like a turkey Fae with the big, you know, all the flesh below the neck. That would be kind of scary. So weird folk are more of just the outcasts, including humans, you know, so humans who have kind of mutated. I was mentioning earlier in the stream human giants. So yeah, maybe just normal Fae who are just a bit scary looking could end up as weird folk. These fish guys look like they came out of Lovecraft. Really cool looking. Thanks. Do you know, when I was designing the crab dragon, it started off as the cuttlefish dragon, and then I was like, oh, I don't really want to do just straight up Lovecraft, especially with the cultists and their kind of pointy hats and their purple robes. It felt super Lovecraft, so Lovecraftian, and I didn't want to just, you know, kind of force that in there. So I wanted to do something different. So that's why it ended up being a crab. I think Lovecraft's is awesome, and I love that kind of thing. But especially in terms of TTRPGs, I do want to kind of make it a bit more unique. That sounds really pretentious, but I mean, I want to have a kind of signature with everything. And I feel if I have, you know, a supplement or part of the game which is basically a Lovecraft type thing, where it's just like you fight against an octopus cult. I don't know. I feel like that'll just feel like it's just straight out of that genre. So I want to maybe avoid it a little bit, but I'll come back to it maybe if I have some good ideas. Sleepy Citizen. Yeah, a whale like Mr. Crab's daughter. Do you know, SpongeBob SquarePants would be a great place to take a lot of influence for Fae. I think, talking earlier about how crab Fae would be difficult to draw, I'll just draw Mr. Krabs. That's a great idea. Okay, I'm going to watch some of that tonight and see if I can get some good influence. That's cool. Dolphins or whales are mammals, so they could fit, but if they look weird, then it's maybe better not to include them. I don't know. I just think a killer whale Fae would look awesome. I agree. And also, just the nature of a killer whale, where they're just like wolves of the sea. Maybe they would make like a killer whale dragon or something, and he has a pod of killer whales with him, or her, and they're a bit of a menace just off the coast. Again, kind of maybe competing with the cuttlefish dragon, or hunting a lot of the fish out of the sea. Oh, that would be cool. A bit like of a Moby Dick type thing, where it's just the adventurers are sent out to deal with the depleting fish stocks, and it turns out it's just a killer whale pod that's just hunting everything to extinction. Bigger organs, small overall mass. Yeah, you know, I think they're all a cool thing, right? It's like just avoiding. I try not to think about it too much. It's like this puffin has thumbs. It's just inevitable. That's how he's holding his walking stick. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go for the coolest options always, and just see if that works. And if it doesn't, then yeah, just give up on it. Love the fish. Thanks. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna come back to fish at some point. I think they're kind of funny. There has to be kind of joke characters in there, right? I love the toads and the frogs, but they are a bit jokey. You know, we've been using whimsical a lot during this stream, but I think fun is like a good way to describe them as well. And I feel like the fish characters would be kind of fun. And if you were doing it as like an RPG, it would have some interesting mechanics as well. Like, okay, they could breathe oxygen, but maybe they need to stay wet as well. So they carry around like a little bottle of seawater or something that they just dump over their heads at different intervals during the day. I just meant there was a story where there was this town where everyone was like half fish and the protagonist didn't know until the end. Oh, really? Do you know, I have not experienced a lot of Lovecraft, just a few video games and a few other bits like I think Love, Death and Robots had a Lovecraft episode. What was that sound? Oh, trivial stab. Okay, you're following. Okay, that scared me. Sorry, that's the first one today. That was really confusing. I need to move that indicator. I didn't know where that came from. Yeah, do you know, I feel like it's such a cool genre, but it's so like in and of itself, right? It's if something's Lovecraft, you kind of know it's Lovecraft in a good way as well. Do you know, talking about fashion for or as like a theme for a setting, with this being like English Civil War fashion. I feel the whole Victorian era of Lovecraft stuff is awesome. It was something I was tempted to do actually with this world building project, is to make it set in the Victorian period. But if I'm honest, I would say, yeah, again, it kind of had a Lovecraft vibe, and also it would require a lot more technical drawing, which is something I'm going to try and get a bit better at with the pre-tech video. You know, kind of it's inspired me a little bit to do some more, like almost like engine part illustrations, but more in the form of like pre-tech, a bit sci-fi. But yeah, honestly, I think Lovecraft stuff is so cool. And another thing that was a bit of an inspiration with the fish dudes, I guess probably a lot of people here have played Baldur's Gate 3, but the little tribe in the Underdark of those fish dudes who look a bit like Murlocs from World of Warcraft, I love them. They were very funny, and I think I probably the biggest inspiration was from those dudes because they were very, very funny. The story is called The Shadow over Innsmouth. I liked it when I read it a year or two back. Cool. I'm going to write that down. I would like to get a bit more into Cthulhu stuff. And I've made an Excel spreadsheet. I'm trying to keep track of all the recommendations people give me, including like YouTube channel. The Shadow over Innsmouth. So I'm trying to keep track of all of these stories. I've got a lot of like fiction I need to read through, but I'm definitely interested in some Fae stuff. Into some Lovecraft stuff. Do you have a reason that the Fae came about? Usually origins define how things look and such. So it's something that's in development. I think it's going to be a big part of the story. You know, who the Fae are and where they came about. You know, one of the explanations in I think my intro video is they were in the forest and they came from the forest as humans started kind of rebuilding society, and they started to integrate in and become, you know, a big part of the culture. His hand is too big there, I think. So honestly, nothing solid so far. It's something I'm going to work on a bit more. This kind of pre-lore. To give a bit more context to everything, but for the time being, I want to mainly focus on expanding as much as possible, just like the current world, if that makes sense, as opposed to what happened before. I quite like with the Byzantine Empire in the acceleration and the you know, a lot of the ruins and with the dragons and everything being so old, I quite like that there's a lot of mystery, and it's just you don't know. And that probably seems like very lazy writing, but I don't know. I think it adds like an element of discovery. And you know, if this does eventually become a TTRPG, which I'm trying to develop, then I would say that's going to be, I guess, something that's a bit more fluid for wardens or for the game masters, because they can kind of put a spin on that. I do have an idea for a kind of introductory segment or an introductory mission related to pre-tech. But again, it's going to be hinting at pre-tech. It's never going to truly describe it. And I think that's an important part of the pre-tech as well. It's not a defined thing. There's so many possibilities with it. The ability to look through walls, or to hear things on the other side of the island, or to kind of read someone's mind, or to fly, like levitate, things like that. But in a really dangerous way, because it would be like one of us picking up an alien remote control and just pressing a button. It's like, okay, it lets me fly, but how is it letting me fly, and what happens when I want to go back down to the ground and things like that. So I think there's going to be a lot of it, which I hope is not frustrating. There's going to be a lot of stuff which is not really described. It's there, kind of in the background. Your project kind of reminds me of La Saga d'Atlas et Axis, which is a short comic series with 4 books. Read all about them. I recommend. It's a great series. Let me Google it. Saga d'Atlas et Axis. Is that French? Are you French, Salazar? Saga d'Atlas Axis. Oh, nice. That's a bit like a BD, right? Hey, cool. Yeah, they got like Fey Dog type things. Hey, that's a great recommendation. I'll write that down as well. Thank you for the recommendation. La Saga d'Atlas. I love comic books. I've got a lot of stuff, especially French artists. I've got loads of stuff from Mobius and a bunch of other ones. All right. Fair enough. Honestly, I would say you're Polish. Okay. I would say there's so much great stuff from France. Honestly, with comics especially and animation, they're just so switched on with that art, I would say. But yeah, I would say I've read a lot of their kind of comics and French comics in general, I think. CP Citizen, what's the idea or concept that you're working on that most interested in? Great question. I would have to say, that's a difficult question. I love the idea of the Fae in general, where it's like it's almost these people who are facing prejudice in this world, but actually they're growing in number, and they exist in the north, and they're coming down, but then they're integrating and they're great, but they're kind of struggling a bit to get into it. But I think the variety of them, and just in terms of their nature as well, is like a cool thing I like to work on, because puffins and hares and badgers and things like that, okay, they're not going to be too aggressive and not going to struggle to fit in. But okay, a wolf, or like a timber wolf, or like timber wolf, is that in Britain? I guess just normal wolves when they existed in the UK. But then things like a weasel, like you saw with Redwall, where the weasels are the bad guys and the rats and things like that, where it's just in their nature to kind of consume, and weasels and stoats are just these killing machines, and them as a troll hunter would just be an effective force. And in fact, I think in my troll hunter video, I did one of the bounty hunters as a weasel, or like a kind of stoaty dude. Did I? Oh, maybe it was one of my other videos. Yeah, this one. And just the nature of the Fae, like how would they react essentially in certain situations? I think it's a cool concept, and it's fun to work on. So yeah, I think that's it. The Fae in general they're just very fun, and especially when you can have a lot of variety with them, and give them big fancy hats and fancy pants as well. just makes it a bit more fun. Would you ever do Fae from other places that moved to your setting, like different animals not native to Britain? Great question. So, just to find a specific piece of art, which I've shown a bunch of times. So this is one of the big pieces I did. It took a long time to draw this, but one of the things was this, is I wanted to kind of ground myself in a setting. So I wanted to do the Port of Scarborough at this point. I knew I was doing the Fae, but I didn't really know where else I was going with it. And I knew the Fae were going to be based in Caledonia, and it's going to be based on Scotland. So there's this dude here. So I was saying earlier in the stream, I chose the 17th century because it's a really cool period globally, because so much is happening at that time. And one of the big aspects was things like the Ottoman Empire and samurai and conquistadors and the English Civil War and things like that. So loads of things happening at the same time. And I was gonna start to introduce a few of those in. So do like a samurai Shiba Inu, or some Ottoman desert animals, like a camel or something. I know Ottoman Empire is, no, maybe camel's a bad example. Something from Persia would be a better example. Sorry. Come up with some things that would come from these different countries. And Spain was going to be a big one as well, because I was thinking of kind of doing a really religious cult of like conquistador-esque people invading Albion Isles with all of their particular armor. But it all felt like it was a bit overwhelming, and I don't know. I was kind of pushing myself a bit too much to think of too many things. Sneaky dog. And so eventually I just kind of took a step back and was like, okay, maybe I'll focus on the Albion Isles. I'll do as much as I can with this, and there's so much there and there's so much to work on. I feel like maybe it's important to have an identity as well, especially because I'm enjoying the YouTube so much, but obviously a big part of it is being perhaps recognizable. But I feel like the floaty hats and these kind of things will make it easier to kind of set my place, if that makes sense. Set my location. So maybe in the future there'll be like hints or indications of these other cultures around the world, but currently it's just the Albion Isles, and therefore the animals from real the UK in real life. How do you decide what animals you make into Fae? Do you make them similar in shape and size, or just go for it? Honestly, I pick animals that look cool. I've got loads of bird books. I've got loads of books about British animals in general. All of my family are into animals and art and things like that. So loads of access to, lots of different types of animals, images of animals, things like that. So I just pick one. I went recently to the coast to see puffins and gannets, which are these awesome, huge white birds. And that actually inspired me to draw this image. So this is a gannet. Let's see if I've got the reference image still. Oh, there you go. So I went to see these. I'm not a big bird watcher, but what a cool bird. Look at that dude. So I wanted to draw that. So honestly, it'll be a lot of stuff that I see. I've drawn blackbirds and other things because I have them in my garden, and they're really cool little animals. I draw a lot of frogs because I see frogs. My neighbor has a pond, and he's got loads of frogs that live in there. So like for example, this one. This is one of the blackbirds that lives in my garden that I took a picture of and made him into a little cook. This is a nightjar, which is a really weird animal. I wonder if I've got the reference image. I do, yeah. So this dude is from the UK, and it looks like an Australian bird or something, kind of like a frog bird, but it's from the UK, and he's awesome. So yeah, honestly, just inspiration. This is kind of, I don't know what I was drawing here, kind of a half human, half thing, but so yeah, honestly, the inspiration just kind of comes out of nowhere, and I just go for it. I feel like that helps me to continuously create. Like I draw almost every single day, probably every day actually now, which in the past was really difficult for me. I think like probably a lot of the artists on here, all of you guys, I'm sure you can relate. It's super difficult to stay consistent and to just continuously draw. And I felt like just not giving yourself too many rules has helped me to draw. And Salazar, that kind of, I think that would be my tip for you as well. Do you have any world building tips? Honestly, I would say to not be too strict with yourself, to think of a really cool idea, and okay, it can be quite expansive and quite complicated, but then when you start, if you're drawing or if you're writing, just start to like chip little bits off and remove them. Like I was saying about potentially doing stuff related to the Ottoman Empire or Imperial Japan or Spain and Portugal and their Latin American conquests, but that's so far from what I'm doing here. It feels like it would be a bit overwhelming if I tried to filter that in. So I would honestly say if you can just kind of start to make stuff and then reduce and kind of polish and then you kind of get a bit of a vibe for what you enjoy doing. I love drawing Fae. It's so fun to draw. Honestly, if you guys want to draw some and send me them, I would absolutely love that, because and you'll see how fun they are with the big floaty pants and all of these kind of things. Sorry, I'm talking a lot. I'm not actually drawing very much. Sorry. But yeah, honestly, that would be my best tip, I think. Strawberry Molly, I don't know. I think it would just be fun to have like a platypus Fae. They're so weird. Yeah, that's one of the things that's really difficult, because I want to be consistent with this idea of, okay, I'm drawing animals from the British Isle. And I honestly love all the animals from the British Isle, and I think it's quite important as well, because to draw things and relate it to your world. But there's so many cool animals around the world. Like even things like a chimpanzee Fae or a Shiba Inu Fae. I have a dog who's a Shiba Inu. And she's the cutest dog in the world, and I would love to draw her into the world. In fact, I have kind of broken my rule here. She is a character in my world, in the dragon video. And this is my dog, Hero. So I ended up introducing her there. Sorry, I won't get all those people in that picture. My dog there, and ended up putting her as a character in one of my videos. So I am quite consistent with just the British Isles, but I do break my own rules from time to time. Just when it kind of works and I see fit to do so. But yeah, so maybe in the future I'll draw some alternative animals. Yeah, she's very cute. She that's a bad picture of her. She's not aggressive at all. She's so sweet. She barks a lot. I don't know if anyone else has experienced Shiba Inus before. They're such a particular dog. They're basically cats, but I would say that she's so funny. She's such a lovely dog. Thank you. Yeah, she is adorable. She's a cutie. Have you heard of the Cornell Bird? Cornell Bird app. It's basically a crowdsourced service. Is that the app where if you hear like a bird, you can record it with your microphone and it'll tell you what kind of bird it is, perhaps? I see. So what you record birds and then you post it and then it tells you and it kind of puts it into a database to say that bird's in this area. Is that what it does? I've not heard of it before. My mum is quite into bird watching, and I know she's recommended an app where you can record birds singing and it'll tell you what kind of bird it is, which is awesome, which is such a cool thing because you get some really rare ones as well. Sleepy Citizen, question, how much of a particular type of animal, sorry, I'm going to start drawing this rabbit now, just because I kind of want it. How much of a particular type of animal affects the Fae's personality? Like wolves or bears would be more aggressive, but would all wolf Fae just be naturally more aggressive, but all still with their own personality? Or is it like they develop more of their own personality the longer they've been Fae? Great question. So my kind of rule with it is, because I want to try a bunch of different animals, I want to leave it kind of open to interpretation. The law behind it essentially is, okay, they are Fae are intelligent and they make decisions like humans. So they become, when they become Fae, they kind of they can be aggressive, or they might be but just because they're outcasts in society, not because they're animals. So I want to I don't want to put too much of a stick, like a label on it, and be like, okay, all carnivores are aggressive. And also, with it hopefully being, when I do eventually develop it into a TTRPG, I would like for people to kind of put their own spin on it. So if you wanted to role play as a like a wolf who's kind of not he's wild, and he doesn't work well with the humans in his party, and that causes perhaps some good role play. Or like when he goes into a human town, people are scared of him because he's a wolf, but he's a human-sized wolf with big teeth, that kind of thing. So I want to leave it kind of open to interpretation if possible. Great question. So I'm just reading through this. Oh yeah, definitely great tip in my opinion. I kind of did that before, but couldn't put it in words like you did. I was designing one of the countries in my world around which most of the stuff I do resolves, and the country is mostly based on Mongolia. And the soldiers were way too much. I like Mongolian soldiers at first, but after like 5 redesigns, I ended up with like 10 or like designs based on Mongolian culture and stuff. I think that's a good way to do it, is to take like a massive amount of influence from one real life thing, and it kind of makes your world feel more grounded. We were talking earlier about Dead Gods by Matthew Rhodes, I think it is. And, he's basing his on the Bible. And so he's getting a lot of his references from there. But then he's also doing things like, what's the art style? Art Deco for all of his architecture. And, it's not reinventing the wheel. It's kind of using something that exists and helping that to make your designs feel more grounded and real. And I think that's such great advice in general. I think that's like, I think that's just like a great way to world build in general. Yeah, absolutely. My advice with chipping it down, I think it has worked for me. But definitely, like what you're saying with Mongolian culture, I think that's a great idea. I think you should stick to that. I think that's cool. And of course, the Mongolian Empire lasted such a long time, and they spread across so many cultures, and they integrated so many cultures within there, and mixed, and generations of Genghis Khan's children who just ruled forever and were total badasses and had all of these amazing stories about them. I think it's such great culture to build something off of. It's like I feel like the Dothraki from Game of Thrones were kind of a mix, right? They were like Mongolians mixed with obviously something more tribal, more like a Bronze Age, but they were so cool. It's just an awesome culture based around horses, and they had horse guards, and everything they did just revolves around horses, and they were so brutal, but they had all of this like awesome lore behind them. And George R.R. Martin, who's just an incredible world builder, who will design a kitchen table better than I could design anything, just basically took Mongolian culture and just made it into a thing, made it into like his world, which is awesome. And like the Braavosi, who are obviously based off of Venice, and that kind of machismo, sword swashing, duelists from Venice, things like that. I feel like that's, he's not stealing it. He's just changing it and making it his kind of thing. What about extinct animals from Britain, or animals that evolved from something else? Like, would an accelerated bird ever gain back dinosaur traits? Cool question. Yeah. So I had the idea of doing extinct animals, and actually someone else asked me about. I don't know if it was you who asked me previously, but someone else asked me about that, if I would reintroduce animals into the British Isles. And there's some really cool ones like woolly mammoths. There's things like, again, cave bears and wolves. And my kind of rule for that is going to be, okay, I'm not going to go too far back. So I'm not going to do dinosaurs, but I am going to do stuff that's quite recent. So for example, wolves are not too long extinct from the UK. So I'm definitely going to reintroduce them at some point. Bears as well. I don't think bears disappeared that long ago. And there's some other ones as well, like beavers. Beavers they've just reintroduced beavers to Scotland, and they're doing really well because we used to have beavers in Scotland, and they got all hunted. I'm not going to do beavers at the moment because I feel like beavers are very much associated with North America. I don't know if that's a bit close-minded, but I there's a guy I really love. What's his name? He's got a book, which is I've taken a lot of influence from him, to say the least. What's it called? It's called. Sorry, let me think. Anyway, so he does his. He's done a world that's very much like Redwall, but in North America. So it's got raccoons and beavers and things like that. So I think his works really well because it you immediately get that like trapper vibe in North America, in those massive like Canadian forests and things like that. So his works quite well in that sense. But yeah, so essentially I want to do stuff that's not too long gone from the UK, but still has the vibe of the UK, if that makes sense. So nothing too that could be too associated with anything else. The part of the world I was referring to a moment ago is at war with a country more based around Russia and Eastern Europe, and with them I took inspiration from Cossacks and gave them human masks. Because I was playing Kingdom Come Deliverance during the period and designing a lot of them. Thank you, masks. Yeah, I mean, Kingdom Come Deliverance is a good example of where you can get loads of really amazing influence from sets and things like that. The Witcher, which is obviously a Polish company, but I think they just have these awesome designs, which is impossible to not be inspired by them. And the Cossacks are awesome. So Cossacks are 16th century, right? When did the Cossacks exist? So the Cossacks, I think, are a great example of just dudes with an awesome style who just seem almost like they're built, like they're like from a world building project, right? They're just so cool and just very, very well thought out, and with cool swords and cool mustaches and cool hair and everything like that. I think they seem like they're from a world building project. And I would love to have someone like Cossacks in my world. I think the fact that you've got Mongolians and Cossacks in your world, or like related to those cultures, I think will just make it super awesome for sure. 15th, 16th century, yeah. Honestly, best time period. I know a lot of terrible things happened around that time, but in terms of interesting periods in history, it's got to be like one of the most interesting, right? So Sleep Sitting. Okay, so their personality isn't hard locked. No, not at all. No. Yeah, like I said, I kind of want it to be open to interpretation. So again, this is hopefully going to be a role playing game, and I want Fae to kind of be outcasts, at least when they exist below Caledonia, and because of that, the players can have some like role playing, but not in their nature, just as their kind of subculture. And the thing is, a lot of them don't associate with Caledonia. Caledonia is almost considered to be a dangerous faction in the north. There's loads of rumors about them potentially moving south and invading and taking over all of the cities and attacking. And of course, this has led to witch hunts amongst the big human settlements, which have caused the deaths of a lot of like Fae and things like that. Just from humans who are paranoid that perhaps they're Caledonian spies, or they're just there to sow deceit and mayhem in the human settlements. So it's quite a typical storyline, I think, that's not very inventive. Just a species war or like a race war type thing. But I don't know. I feel like from a role playing perspective, it'll be interesting, especially if you've got like a mixed group where it's not all Fae in your party, but like a couple of humans and a couple of Fae, and you go into human settlements or you go into Fae settlements, and you kind of you have to deal with the consequences of just being born as a rabbit Fae, for example. They're built different. That's right. They are built different for sure. You could have stuff like they put the built different. You could have stuff like the Great Orc, because those would have gone extinct after your time period. Oh, nice. Great Orc. Oh, cool. Oh, yeah. So they're like big Big birds. I mean, that's a perfect example. Yeah. So something that still existed in this like period, because the acceleration is actually set a long time in the future. In fact, it's I always refer to it as post apocalyptic. So yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of just taking influence from that time period, but I would like it to be to kind of fit with all that stuff. So yeah, absolutely. I think that'd be a cool one to do. And they don't look too different to a lot of standard seabirds. In fact, some of the birds I went to see when I saw the puffins looked exactly like that. So yeah, I think that's a great shout. Something like a great auk as well. I like the design of the soldiers based on cockers. I feel like they're good, but they don't look fantasy enough, and they're from a different world. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I think that's important as well. You don't want to go, into a situation where nothing in the world kind of fits together, and where you've got like super modern soldiers fighting against super like historical standard knights type thing. I agree, definitely. It's good to have a kind of a good idea. One thing I mentioned earlier was potentially putting Bronze Age stuff in there, but more in the sense of like the typical Celtic vibe. A big aspect of Caledonia is it's supposed to be, essentially the standard Scottish rebellion culture. So against the Romans or against the English, or during the English Civil War, like so many instances in history, and I just love that. And just how there's such a unique culture, like Celtic culture in general. But, like you said, you're kind of restricted to not make them too... I can't just put Bronze Age Picts tribesmen into a setting with muskets and stuff like that. It just doesn't really work. I think D&D gets away with that a little bit, because you do have things like an artificer with a knight, for example. But again, I think that's more because it's like a magical setting. Mongolian soldiers make them kind of more grounded, less fancy, and the Cossack-based soldiers more fancy. Nice, yeah. Maybe just go for like a middle ground or something. That could be a good way to do it. I need to leave. Time for sleep. It was so nice to join the stream. I hope you have a great time. Thanks, Albert. Really appreciate you being here. I'm going to totally try to catch your stream in the future. If anyone, Albert, she streams on Twitch as well, and she's another person in the world building community, so a good person to check out as well. Really, really good art and just an interesting world, and she's a great concept artist as well, so a great one to check out. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it, and I'll definitely try and jump into one of your streams as soon as possible for sure. Okay, Sazan, be back soon. I'm gonna finish up this drawing a little bit more, I think, and then I probably will get off as well. I was supposed to finish at about 10:30. It's about 10 to 11 now in the UK. I'm definitely gonna be up early. Of all the people still watching, is there any particular fae anyone wants to see? Any particular animal that you just like to see in a cool hat or a cool costume? Again, I'm looking for any advice or any tips. I'd rather draw stuff that other people think is cool, because I think for me I would probably just draw hares all day, because hares are just cool animals, and badgers and foxes. It's one of the big reasons why you've probably seen a lot of badgers and foxes and things like that in my stream, in my videos. It's just because they're fun to draw and they look cool. This guy. But yeah, any suggestions would be good as well. If some fae worship dragons, do fae also care about the normal counterpart? Like if a fox fae is eating a rabbit, Hikor, would a rabbit fae care? Great question. Yeah. So I thought about this a while ago, and to be honest, it kind of dropped off my mind. But it's a great question. One thing I was considering was essentially yes. I feel like they would have a bit of a connection. Maybe some creatures would be less empathetic. So, for example, if you had something like a rat, a bit like the Skaven in Warhammer, it's like, okay, if it's a rat fae and it's hungry and it sees a rat, it's going to eat eat the rat animal. And the same with like a rat dragon. I haven't made up a rat dragon yet, but something like that. I feel like so some types of animal again probably would not be very empathetic or sympathetic towards their other creatures. But I would say others, like a rabbit, for example, would probably be quite instinctually protective of a normal rabbit. There's an image I did earlier of a giant rabbit, giants, and it's just hanging out with a bunch of rabbits because it just thinks it's a normal thing to do. So I would say yes. I would say it does depend on the type of fae, and it's like with the fae dragons, like you said. For example, a lot of seagulls worship seagull dragons, and they're kind of drawn to them. They live in the same location, they have the same diets, that kind of thing. And one image that I'm currently working on, it's quite a big image, is this one. I might come back to this in a stream at some point. So these are all different types of corvid in the UK. Welcome back, Salazar. So we've got jays, jackdaws, chuffs. We've got a hooded crow, a carrion crow, a rook, loads of different ones, and they quite naturally just come back together. And you've even got like the natural birds. These images are very much not done at all, which is why they all look a bit rough. But you've got just the normal birds here. Some of them with little hats, and this little chuff dude. But they just spend time together because they're quite naturally drawn to each other. And I want that to be a big aspect of the Fae, and the role playing game, where you're kind of you probably role play like if you're a rabbit, you want to hang out with other rabbits, that kind of thing. Thanks for joining the stream, Fick. Really appreciate it. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Cheers. Salazar, a Stork Fae, Matthew. Yes. I have drawn a Stork Fae. I don't know if you saw my Frogs of War video, but there's a few, and they're actually quite evil. One of the big reasons I wanted to make them quite evil is I know this is a heron, but they're like some of the fisher birds I've put, like I was just saying with the corvids, some of the fisher birds I kind of put into a cult, which is the fisher cult, who live in the swamps of Icenia. And just like I was saying there, they kind of instinctually get together and stay together. Although their dragons have kind of been, one of them has been killed and one of them was dispersed, but they still kind of go together. These were fun to draw, kind of like the fish, because with the long necks and everything. This was a bit of a concept page, but I got a few of them done. But I love this one, this big dude. And sleeps Thronix. Maybe you could do like a falcon type fae. Do you know, I did a falcon dragon for this one, or I guess like kind of like an eagle. And I love them. They're such cool animals. They're such intelligent animals as well. So it is something I'm going to come back to. I think I did start drawing one a while ago, but I never got around to finishing it. So yes, definitely. Falcon one is in the works. Let's see, a pig man in a suit. I've done a few pig images, I've done a few boar, and I did a concept. I did one a while ago, which was just a straight up pig. And there's a lot of my really early designs here. I can't remember I did him. So there's the boar one there. This is one of my favorite first images with a rat and a boar. But I'm going to do some more pigs, I think, because pigs are just very smart animals. They seem like good ones to make into fae. Okay, right. I think I'm going to end the stream there. I was supposed to end at past, but I went over a bit because I really appreciate all the questions. Thank you everyone for turning up. Honestly, I wasn't sure what's going to happen with the stream. It's my first time streaming, so hopefully it was okay. But that was really fun. I really enjoyed that. The questions are great. I got loads of fantastic ideas from you guys as well. And I think definitely it's something I want to continue doing in the future. I'll probably say try and do it every Wednesday. It's probably the easiest day for me. Probably around the same time. if I can. But if anyone has any suggestions or any critique they'd give me for the stream, I really appreciate it. Maybe if you could leave it in the chat and I can check it out afterwards, or you could just send me a message, I don't know how, on Instagram or anything like that. Sleepy Citizen, and an ant cult. So ants are definitely one that I want to get into. Talking about concepts, I did do one actually for the dragon. So I never posted this because I wasn't very happy with the image, but I'll just show you guys because you're on here. So I started to do one with an ant cult. And it was going to be a giant ant queen, and I'm going to come back to this at some point. But yeah, it's definitely in the works. I think it will be a good one to do for sure. But yeah, thanks everyone. I really appreciate it. It was great to have you here. I'll be on again next Wednesday, but you know, it's so nice to have so many questions and interest in the acceleration. So definitely have a good night, everybody, or morning, or whatever time it is for you guys, and I'll see you next time. Yeah, thanks, I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a good time, and definitely going to try to catch the streams. See you next week. Perfect, thanks guys. Right, have a good night everyone, and I'll see you next week. Cheers guys.